Fuel tank vapors are allowed to move from the fuel tank due to the pressure in the tank through the EVAP vapor tube into the EVAP canister. Carbon in the canister absorbs and stores the fuel vapors. The excess pressure is vented through the vent hose and EVAP vent solenoid valve to the atmosphere. The EVAP canister stores the fuel vapors until the engine is able to use them. At an appropriate time, the engine control module, or ECM, will command the EVAP purge solenoid valve on, allowing engine vacuum to be applied to the EVAP canister. With normally the open EVAP vent solenoid valve off, fresh air is drawn through the vent solenoid valve in the vent hose to the EVAP canister. Fresh air is drawn through the canister, pulling fuel vapors from the carbon. The air-fuel vapor mixture continues through the EVAP purge tube and EVAP purge solenoid valve into the intake manifold to be consumed during normal combustion.
There are several tests that the vehicle will conduct in order to monitor the operation of the EVAP system. First is a purge solenoid valve leak test. In this test, the ECM commands the purge valve off and the vent solenoid on. And this seals the system as the vehicle watches the fuel tank pressure sensor for an increase in vacuum. Another test would be a large leak test for a 0.04 of an inch sized leak. This is done by commanding the purge valve open and the vent valve closed. The BCM then monitors the fuel tank pressure sensor voltage to see the system reach a predetermined level of vacuum in a certain amount of time. Another test is the canister vent restriction test. This is done by commanding the purge solenoid on and the EVAP solenoid off, and then monitoring fuel tank pressure sensors for an increase in vacuum, finding a restriction. And another test would be the small leak test. This would be a 0.02 of an inch leak. This is done by monitoring the natural vacuum of the system. As the fuel cools after running, the system can run up to 40 minutes after key off. This is done by closing and sealing the system and watching as natural vacuum builds. Alright, here we can see normal operation of the EVAP's system. Here we can see on the Equinox the vent valve is open with the vehicle off. We can start it as it is a normally open valve. We can also see our engine temperature, and we are still in open loop. We can see our fuel level voltages indicating our fuel level, and our purge valve is commanded at 0%, that it's off at the moment. We can also see the fuel tank pressures and our long and short-term fuel trims. Now that we are in closed loop, this is normal operation. Here we're going to show some of the bidirectional control on the Equinox. Here we can command the purge valve open. This is a pulse width modulated valve. As you can see, is currently commanded off, and we can increase the percentage it is commanded as it clears the charcoal canister. We can use this for testing. We can also command the vent valve solenoid. This is a normally open valve, and we can close it so that it is not venting or back to venting. And we can use a EVAP purge seal actuator test. Here we can watch different pressures as we command the vent valve. And the purge valve, with the vent valve closed and the purge valve operating to watch. This can also be used to build vacuum in order to do testing. Here we're going to show the calibration of the leak tester. Here we can see this is a 0.04, and then if we switch it to about a 0.02, see about half that. Here we are smoking it with the vent valve open. The vent valve goes up to the fill tube and opens on the top. The vent valve vents out of the charcoal canister, kind of empties into the fender here.
Here on the Equinox, we're going to command the vent solenoid closed. As you can see there, now we are not venting. Now we can test for leaks in a closed system. You can smoke it. Here we are smoking the EVAP system. We have the vent valve closed, and we are on the back side of the purge valve. As you can see, we have smoke in all of the EVAP system. Doing this, we can test for any leaks around the charcoal canister and along the EVAP system.
The Silverado and the Equinox have very similar components for the EVAP system. Both vehicles have a EVAP canister, purge solenoid valve, vent solenoid valve, a fuel tank pressure sensor, and a EVAP service port. And with this, for the operation, they run the same tests: a large leak test, a small leak test, a canister vent restriction test, a purge solenoid valve leak test, and a check gas cap meshing that comes on your dash. So here we took the line off of our vent valve here, have our smoke tester hooked up to it, going into our canister, and we're going to hope to see smoke come out on the top side of the fuel tank or our fuel filler knife.
Smoking from here with the gas cap off, we were unable to find any smoke coming out of the gas tank as it should have been. So now we're going to try smoking the gas tank and going backwards. Pressure test the cap on the Silverado. Here we can show when we put air to it. We can watch how it leaks out the port, and I put my finger over the port. You can see we don't have any leaks.
Alright, so here we have the smoke tester going into my filler neck, and here I have the vent solenoid set to not venting, and here we are going to see our fuel tank pressure change. So ready? So here you can see that fuel tank pressure slowly rise up when we put smoke to it, getting around to 4.44, and you can see our voltage also drop down with that sensor as well. And then with this, it's going to show a refueling event too, and we set the EVAP to venting, and that pressure go back out. So here we're going to simulate a refueling event. So we have our vent open, and you can see our tank pressure slowly go up, but very minimal.
The Tucson EVAP system consists of a fill vent valve, fuel shutoff valve, fuel cutoff valve for rollover, two-way valve for a pressure and vacuum relief, fuel liquid vapor separator, which is installed beside the filler pipe, charcoal canister under the rear floor, and a shield, tubes and miscellaneous other connections, and a purge valve. The onboard refueling vapor recovery system on the Tucson operates very similar to other systems. When refueling, ambient air is drawn into the filler pipe and not to emit fuel vapors into the air that the fluid creates a seal as it goes down the pipe in order to prevent vapors from traveling back up the pipe. Fuel vapor in the tank is then forced to flow into the canister via the fill vent valve. The liquid vapor separator isolates the liquid fuel and passes pure vapor to the charcoal canister. When the engine is operating, trapped vapor in the canister is drawn and emptied back into the intake manifold for the engine to use. This occurs during the purging process and recovers the canister's absorbing capacity.
Here we're going to run a test that cycles the purge valve. Here we have our air connected to the purge valve inlet, and we're going to watch as we can hear it start to cycle the purge valve. We supply air. We can confirm the purge valve opening and closing.